which is traditionally recalcitrant when it comes to paying tax. All concerned recognise that it is far from being an ideal system and that there is room for improvement. Now, when he says recalcitrant when it comes to paying tax, employees don't have a choice on whether they pay tax. It's deducted at source. The only people who had been recalcitrant here had been the employers. He also recognises that the system was less than perfect. And yet, Revenue, Social Welfare Appeals Office, Enterprise Employed and Entrainment, all of them are arguing that the system is perfect. But they know it's not. No improvement ever came. The far from ideal system has become the norm, not just in the courier industry, but with the ERCT, the GMS, and on and on. Perhaps the most insightful comment on the activities of the ESG and the hidden economy came from the late chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Jim Mitchell. In an unanswered letter, Jim asked the same question I asked. I would appreciate the views of Congress on this issue, on what Congress hoped to achieve through the hidden economy group. And what did they hope to achieve? What they hoped to achieve was to overturn the Denny decision. And 16 years on, we can say nothing has been achieved. Instead of preventing the misclassification of workers, the secret agenda of the Employment Status Group has ensured that misclassification is rife in many industries and accepted and condoned by government. Noonan and ICTU. After the ESG concluded its business back in 2000, 2001, nobody cared. The building was booming, money was being made, nobody asked questions. Since the crash, Noonan and ICTU have been at loggerheads about this. I'll just, this is from ICTU this is just one of a number of letters from ICTU to Congress. And it says, or ICTU to the Revenue Commissioners, and it says, I have read with bemusement the letter. Our submission attempted to explain to Revenue how its own flawed processes are having negative consequences for good employment in construction. It is clear from your response that Revenue is very happy with the current procedures and is unconcerned about any down-the-line negative consequences. This one is from, and this is really my favourite one. This is from Jan O'Sullivan, this is from Patricia King to Michael Noonan. And in this, Patricia says, I refer to your parliamentary question from Deputy Boyd Bard on the 23rd of June regarding the operation of RCT forms in the construction industry. Congress is mentioned twice in your reply, and I am concerned that the situation you describe does not reflect the situation as it has existed for quite some time. Congress was indeed involved with drawing up the original Code of Practice some years ago in line with our participation on the Hidden Economy Group. As we understood it, the purpose of this code was to ensure the use of agreed criteria when determining the appropriate status of employees or contractors within the law. Well, you're wrong, ICTU. What you did is exactly what Michael Noonan has said. You agreed to screw me over. They took it as precedent, and now they are screwing everybody over because it is administratively efficient, but it is not legally sustainable. A secret cabal of civil servants, industry insiders, and unions sat down and overturned the precedents of the Denny case. The Social Welfare Appeals Office has worked off that ever since. Now, you recognise these chaps here. These chaps went on dispute a couple of years ago. They climbed up a crane. They went on Joe Duffy. They explained that all they wanted to do was be paid for the work they did and be recognised as employees. Now, I write quite a bit about bogus self-employment, and on one of the pieces I write, a chap called Ken got in touch with me, and Ken is an expert on this in the construction sector, an expert on this, knows more than anybody else does, and Ken and I realised we were working on the same issue. So over the years we've kept in touch, and as part of the dispute these guys had, they applied for scope decisions. 10 guys. 8 of them were bricklayers, 2 of them were labourers. They rang me at the last minute. They were heading in the door to the Social Welfare Appeals Office. The union, as it had done in my case, as it agreed to do in the employment status group, it walked away and left it up to the employees, the workers, because that's what it agreed to do. All unions have agreed to walk away and leave it to the worker. Mick Barry TD wrote to the Minister for Social Protection. Now, I wanted Mick to ask Leo Varadkar, would scope be represented legally, exactly as they were in my case. Now, the reason behind this is I met all of these guys. We discussed their cases, I looked through them, and I told them, look, you're going to be shafted. This is what this is about. The decision was made by the employment status group many years ago. This is just a formality where they shaft you. Now, I wanted scope to have legal representation. Same as in my case there was legal representation, because it means there's another record of a legal person saying, no, you can't do this. In reply, Leo said, it is not the practice of the scope section to be represented by legal counsel at appeal hearings. Now, that's not true. They have had, and scope have demanded, legal representation. The Department of Social Protection did not want the scope section legally represented at an appeal where it has been exposed that decisions are based on legal edicts and not, or based on political edicts and not legal process. The decision, well, the decisions came through, and these guys at the appeal had no legal representation. Myself and Ken went along to do our best to fight their case for them, but it really wasn't their case. They were only notice parties, witnesses to a case. It was social welfare's case. The scope had made the decision, and at the end of the Social Welfare Appeals Office case, the only important question was asked of the scope deciding officer, and it was, have you heard anything that would warrant changing your decision? And he replied, no. The Social Welfare Appeals Office person who overturned the scope officer's decision is not his superior. He is not his judge. He is merely his colleague, another employee of the department. What the construction company had said they wanted, which was that every worker below the level of site foreman was self-employed. That has now come to pass. In overturning these decisions, every single worker is self-employed. The guy who brushes the dust on a site, who get paid a set wage per week, is now self-employed. It is the insurable jobs divide that we see in all gig economies. Higher paid jobs are legitimate jobs, lower paid jobs are bogus self-employment. Conclusions. Well, These companies, these principal contractors, are saving 30% on labour costs. And it's been done through bogus self-employment with the assistance, guidance, whatever you want to call it, of the state. There are two legal principles that stand out in this. One, these guys were not in business of their own account. There is nothing to prove they were in business of their own account. Nothing. And the second is equality of arms. From the moment these guys go on site, they are told what they are. You are self-employed. There is no choice, no decision. If they want to appeal it, it takes years, and at the end of it, the decision is going to overturn no matter what scope decision they get in the first place. The loss to the state is immense. Michael Noonan has said in a reply to Deputy Pater Tobin, the Deputy will be aware that the primary purpose of the RCT regime is not to generate significant tax yield for the Exchequer. But that is exactly the purpose of the RCT system. And if it's not generating income, it's not working. These guys were not employees, are not self-employed. The ERCT system is a scam. Social welfare are buying people into the ERCT system. They are paying for their tools. They are helping them set up companies. They are giving them back to work. And they're doing it for short-term gain, simply to reduce the numbers on the unemployment registry. Indeed, this week, a young man contacted the Revenue Commissioners and he told them, I am a self-employed apprentice. As this is not unusual in the industry. This is the norm. Ireland is the Wild West. At least in the UK, they're fighting back. They have cases coming down the line. They have taken cases and said, no, enough of these tax evasion smoke screens. The EU, there's cases in Germany. There's a case in California against Uber. All the same thing as this. So that's basically it. The legitimately employed are getting screwed over by an increased tax burden. The illegitimately self-employed are getting screwed over. Companies are making huge savings on labour, and the government is helping them out. I've done all I can. Over to you.